Hey guys, welcome back. Drip Coach here with Drip and Farm for Poverty, where we don't trust, we verify and operate with integrity and transparency. Today, going to be bringing to you a short clip from Samson Mow, who is on the Block Rewards podcast about 2 weeks ago, and going into his thesis on kind of this Bitcoin singularity, where we will no longer be pricing things in Bitcoin and in satoshis, and what that will look like for what he calls a 15 sats minimum wage. So stay tuned.
Bitcoin is booming. Are you cashing in or missing out? At Drip2BTC, we're rewriting the rules of Bitcoin investing. Earn up to 30% ROI on your deposits, unlock incredible Bitcoin discounts, and transform credit into up to 3,000% APR growth. No hassle, just real results. Don't wait, your future is one deposit away. Drip2BTC.com. Invest smart today.
All right, for those of you that don't know, Samson Mow is definitely a Bitcoin OG and just as prominent, in my opinion, as Michael Saylor. I think Michael gets more hype just due to what he has recently done, but Samson has been around far longer and has been rubbing elbows with a lot of nation state adoption, like trying to get nations to get on the Bitcoin standard, kind of very similar to what Max Kaiser has done over in El Salvador. So he is making moves behind the scenes and is just a Super Bowl for Bitcoin, responsible for or CEO of Jan3 and Pixelmatic. And in this podcast on Block Rewards, we're going to cover just a short clip where I have mentioned before about this idea of pricing things in sats, but he kind of gives this, I guess you would call it, time frame, and then also like a value that in order to wrap your head around it, you still have to kind of break this logic of looking at it in sats and then give it a dollar value equivalent so that we can make sense. But the whole point of this is that eventually the dollar goes away and disappears, just as all fiat currencies and world reserve currencies prior to it have done. So satoshis will be the new denomination and Bitcoin the official currency, so to speak. So let's listen to that clip.
It's not 100,000, it's 100K. So the logical extension is to go to M and then eventually, B, but for billion. But there is no really an upper bound for where Bitcoin will go. I believe we're going to cross this threshold. You can call it the Veblen threshold or some threshold whereby we start to demonetize other large pools of existing assets like gold, real estate, and whatnot. And then it just accelerates from there upwards. So I think that sweet spot somewhere in the 400 to 600K range. And that's when we really start to take gold market cap away from that and move it to Bitcoin. So it's really just framing Bitcoin in a way that people can understand that there is a lot of growth potential still, and to prepare them for $1 million Bitcoin and upwards, which I think some people can't see. They think, oh, well, it's grown so much, there's a diminishing return. That's a common one that people throw out there, but there is no such thing as diminishing returns when you're replacing an existing monetary system that is inferior. It just goes away and it dies. So it's not so much that I think we're going to be talking about multi-billion-dollar Bitcoin. If you priced it in terms of fiat, yes. But I think once you cross the few million mark, maybe in the 5 million range, I think that's when people stop accepting fiat currencies and they just accept sats. And that just becomes the new norm. So you'll never actually get to the point where a Bitcoin is worth $1 trillion. We're going to switch completely off the fiat standard and onto the Bitcoin standard completely by that point. And I think...
So that is, just bullish, of course. I don't know how long that takes, when that'll be, but that is one thought camp or school of thought. The other is that the US dollar will coexist. Now, I don't really know. I can see arguments for both sides. They're technically, I guess, the average lifespan of a global reserve currency is around 100 years. And depending on where you price or you put the pin in for the US dollar, it could be already at that point or approaching it within the next decade based off of going off the gold standard. And since historically every other fiat currency and world reserve has failed, then logic dictates that dollar will too. Can they kick the can down the road? Can. using this strategic reserve and extend the life? Yeah, possibly. So does that mean we'll see the destruction of the dollar in our time frame? I have no idea. But I do believe that Bitcoin will definitely become this more recognized, globally accepted currency. So you can currently go to another country and exchange your dollars for euro for yen, Khmer real, whatever. But I believe there will definitely be within our time frame where you would just be able to, trade in Bitcoin, even as the current fiat system exists in those other countries. I don't think it'll be as El Salvador has done, where you just move all the way over to Bitcoin. Some countries might do that, maybe this cycle, but it's just hard to wrap your head around it. But again, it just makes sense because history dictates that that is the logical progression. So as he mentioned, that is in a range where he's saying 400 to 500,000, where people just stop looking at converting into US dollar. And again, that logic makes sense because if you watch, let's just say this plays out with the Trump administration accumulating Bitcoin as they said they would, there has to be a point where the masses look at the financial system and go, wait a minute, the government is taking dollars and then buying this other thing with them. Why am I trying to keep my dollars? Why don't I buy the thing that they're buying? Like, there will just be a click, a shift. And will that be at the 500,000 mark? Maybe. Will it be further down? I have no idea. But it does make logical sense when you zoom out and you start to see publicly that nation states are all buying Bitcoin with their currency. Then it's like, wait a minute, why am I using their currency if they don't even want to keep it, right? So I think there will be some point where that does take place. Let's go to the next part of the clip where he gives the specific minimum wage of satoshis.
Here, that's normal, right? So we just have to understand that Bitcoin will reprice everything. And yes, it will go up, but it's going to just be sats from now on. Like, we'll go back to more of a normal sounding price range for things. Like, you pay maybe $10 a coffee right now. That's kind of ridiculous, right? And you might be paying 10, 15 bucks for a hamburger, but your grandparents paid 15 cents for a hamburger. So once we go back to that once we go to that Bitcoin standard and we reprice to satoshis, I think, people will be earning 15 sats an hour at minimum wage, if there's still such things as minimum wages, but everything will sound more normal and you'll have normal numbers once again.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that.
So I could definitely see that. So he prefaced this, I skipped that part, but he prefaced this because we're using numbers like trillion and quadrillion, and there is really no way to wrap your head around that concept of how big that number is. Like, we throw out billions as the new million and trillions as the new billion, and then quadrillion as the new trillion. And there's this example of using seconds in like a day, right? Or seconds, an hour, but in a day. So you can actually see how this gets out of hand so fast. So 1 million seconds is just under 12 days, 11 and a half days, basically. But then when you go from 1 million seconds to 1 billion seconds, you're at 32 years almost. So like, this is just under 2 weeks. Now, all of a sudden, when you make million to billion, you're at 32 years. Like, this is over almost half of people's lifetime. And then when you go to trillion, you're at 32,000 years, right? So this is just astronomical numbers. And that's why he's saying at some stage, you just have to stop using these crazy numbers and go to things priced in Bitcoin. And then that's where he mentions that you'll have a 15 cents minimum wage, roughly, or could possibly. And that got me to looking at the household income of things over the years, and the average household income, the amount of purchase to buy a house has been about 5 times your average household income. It's currently at a higher ratio, but that just goes, I'm going to use this to help you understand like where we would be with Bitcoin. because you see me pull this up before where it shows how many satoshis to buy a house, but it needs to be priced more accurately historically over like what was the amount of money per salary per year that it was costing to buy an actual house, and that average has been about 5. So that's going to be important to determine kind of what the sats per hour range would be that could be in that equivalent range. And this chart is just really cool, showing over time that, yeah, if we go back to like the 90s, everything was basically price income ratio of like a 3 to 4. So just 3 to 4 times your annual salary to get a home. And then once we hit that 2008 financial crisis, you start seeing these 8s and 10s in certain countries, or states, state cities specifically. So we'll keep that 5 because I think that's a good sweet spot. So let's first go back to the minimum wage idea he mentioned. So he said that he could see minimum wage being 15 sats if we still have something like that. So right now, the minimum wage in the US is $7.25. There are some places that are 15 sats an hour, but you can see that, I'm sorry, not 15 sats, that is $15 an hour, but it's currently basically half of that. So right now, that comes out to 0.0014. So we can just do some back of napkin math that basically we can say Bitcoin is at 100,000. And if you wanted to have a $7.25 minimum wage, then multiplying this by 10,000 would give us a $14 minimum wage. So that means the Bitcoin price would be at $1 billion. Cut that in half. It is 500 million, and that gives you basically a $7 minimum wage. So 500 million. That is just astronomical, and yeah, would not make any sense logically to us right now trying to wrap our head around that. But like Samson mentioned, there just comes a point where we just denominate everything in Bitcoin. So to go back to that idea of 4 times your annual salary, if the annual salary is 64K, and then it takes 4 times as much right now to buy a home, then we can once again look at that $500 million Bitcoin price and say that it would be a $1,000 or 1,000 sat price for a $500,000 home. So that allows for the price of homes to continue to increase at this stage, and it would only be 1,000 sats. So it would come down from the current 437,000 sats to just 1,000 sats. So if 1,000 satoshis is the price of the home and the average earnings per year is 4 to 5 times that amount, well, in simple math, 1,000 divided by, we'll go 4.5, you're making 222 satoshis per year, and divided by 12, you're making 18 per month, and divided by 360 for the number of, I'm sorry, not 360, 40, 80, what is that? 160. Yeah, 168 work hours per month. You'd be making close to what he said. 0.11, actually, no, I'm sorry, he said 15 sats an hour. This would actually be a fraction of that. So you'd be making 0.1 sats per hour if we got to that crazy $500 million Bitcoin price. So that's just nuts. So there would obviously, before we got to this, maybe we just stopped looking at, as he mentioned, you stop looking at US dollar value and you just price things in satoshis. So we would be 100 magnitude ahead of this and just say, okay, now 15 satoshis is the price range. So instead of being 500 million, we're at that 5 million price target that he mentioned. So I don't know. It's just crazy to wrap your head to see that, as he mentioned, we are still early and there's so much room for growth here because there's so much room for destruction via the world reserve currency crumbling as all others have done. So I just wanted to show you guys those numbers because even the Michael Saylor numbers go all the way up to like, I don't remember how many millions. Yeah, he mentioned that it would be 13 million a coin by 2030 or something like that in the next 21 years or so. So 5 million is well within his price target. So at some stage, yeah, we just stop pricing things in US dollars because like it doesn't make any sense once you're over that $5 to $10 million per Bitcoin mark to just keep pricing things in dollars, because again, it would be so obvious that the US is buying Bitcoin and other nations are using their fiat currency to accumulate Bitcoin. So we just stop using that. And then just every time you would go to a website and select the currency option up here, you would just select, instead of all these other ones, they just be like, just go ahead and put it straight into satoshis. That would be the goal. All right, hope that made some sense, gave you some insight on where we could potentially be heading to be pricing things in sats, start thinking about things in sats, and also looking at your portfolio. Are you stacking sats? All right, smash that HBO special, help a brother out, like, subscribe, comment down below, and until next time, live daily and achieve your impossible. See ya.
Want to pay your in real life bills with crypto? How about send crypto directly to anyone with a bank account? Spritz Finance is a decentralized solution to be your own bank and connect your crypto earnings to real-world bills and payments. They do not take custody of your assets and allow support on multiple blockchains and Web3 wallets. Sign up below using my referral link and you will get $50 back when you make your first $50 bill payment with crypto. Additionally, I will be using referral bonuses to airdrop, donate, or burn based on community feedback. Sign up now.